So this is part of, if anyone is new, our Grow Get Ready with Entrepreneurs. Weekly, we are a gathering of like-minded entrepreneurs interested in building our brands through networking and sharing of ideas and best practices. And as much as our topics typically are focused on marketing, we really do want to think holistically as it pertains to building a business that is sustainable in growth to support our people, planet, and profits. If you don't know about us, acornstudio.marketing/GRWE is where you can find out more information and sign up for our newsletters and learn about all the other opportunities to be part of the group. And just to let you know, Grow is a project under Acorn Studio Marketing. And we are a boutique group of entrepreneurs ourselves and a marketing firm helping entrepreneurs and business leaders build their brands and their business. You can reach out to us, find out how, and learn more about us at acornstudio.marketing. And this is me, Laura Dunkley. I am a fractional CMO and consultant at Acorn. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole adult life. And you can reach out to me, please do, on LinkedIn if you haven't already, and connect with me. That's probably the best place to get in touch. And today's session, we're going to go over what is a brand strategy, what's a brand promise. We're going to touch on a little bit about telling your brand story, and then we're going to review that brand example I mentioned at the back. And then at the end of all of this, we're going to have a time for discussion. We'll stop the recording and we'll just and have a good panel discussion. And there are some resources, just if you want to download them now or access them afterwards. We have brand topics on our blogs. They are free. We also have a brand storytelling guide and template, very extensive, even another webinar that you can follow as well. And it is here at this QR code, or you can see our downloads on our resources page, as well as a brand strategy template. This is available for you as you work out. There's a guide. It's a bunch of things in there too, and it's on our downloads. There's also one that I don't have here. If you scroll right to the bottom of our downloads, there's a brand checklist, and it is a freebie. So please do scroll all the way down to have a look at that one. Started. What is a brand strategy? Well, it's a long-term plan for the development of your successful brand, your business, in order to help you reach your specific goals, of which it's part of, which is why the brand strategy is part of your business plan, that section. It encompasses various components that work together to make you unique, your brand distinctive, relevant, and consistent to your target market and other key stakeholders as they come. It is your identity. It's who you are. So this map, this strategy is a well-defined aspect of your business plan, and it is directly created so that you can connect with your consumers' needs, their emotions, and stay competitive in a very competitive environment. So developing a cohesive and clear brand strategy is all about getting a deep understanding of your market, knowing who your competition is, and the value you offer to your customers. It helps you guide your marketing strategy, your sales strategy. It is going to help with your product development. That would also include service offerings, different products as they come in, and even how you evolve your product offering. It's also going to affect your customer service. Because if you are a luxury brand, for example, how you are perceived and how you deliver your customer service is going to be really important. So just you really need to know who you are and who you serve and how to best serve them so you can connect with them and find those valuable relationships and develop them. So the strategy guides all those aspects to ensure that your business is aligned with your business's core identity and goals. So this is it. Pretty much, I'm going to just show you what that is. It is a map, right? You are a startup, and where you envision this brand to end up has a whole journey in between. And it is how you are going to be along that customer journey, how you're going to connect with them. So when do we do this? As we mentioned, sales, marketing, customer service, also public relations, media. And public relations isn't just media, right? It's all your key stakeholders, how you're going to engage with them, whether it's internal employees, whether it's investors, whether it is the media. How you are as a brand is really important on how you connect and how you will be perceived by them. So then what do we do? So we have this wonderful strategy, this idea, like we talked about earlier. And then now what do we do with it? So basically, it's going to take that and it's going to go into everything you do, whether it's print, whether you do it online or in person, because you have to remember that sales and customer service and even going to events is going to be in person. How are you going to dress? How are you going to speak? What kind of words are you going to use? So part of that is how is over encompassing all of that is we have to consider everything we do visually and how we're perceived and messaging. So the words we use, the tone, the style, how we present ourselves. So that this is kind of a one-page visual to help you understand what a brand strategy is. So those elements of a brand strategy is your positioning. So this is how you position yourself within the market, right? How are you going to differentiate yourself from the competitors in the mind of the target audience? We always have to think of that buyer first, right? Your target audience first. How are we perceived? And that's really important because that's why research is really important, because we sometimes get how we perceive ourselves is not always how our audience perceives us. So please do ongoing research is always really important. So this involves creating a unique impression in customers' minds that associates something specific and desirable with your brand that is distinct, right, from the rest of your marketplace. Often this will be done right at the beginning, right, as you develop your initial business. But please do also revisit this from time to time because the market changes, your business develops. Make sure that positioning statement is still relevant and accurate for you. And so then it's your brand voice. Now, this is where the messaging comes in, right? It's your tone and personality that you are going to be using in communication, which is a range from professional and authoritative to informal and friendly, depending on your brand's personality. So if you, again, going back to a luxury brand, you're not going to just use slang, right? If you are speaking to a business community, maybe it's in a specific niche, you're going to have certain language around that because that's going to build credibility. And I know in my past, it was always everyone talks about plain language. And plain language just is understood by the average person. But when you get into the niche world, they're going to expect you to understand their language and talk their language. So sometimes that might be at a different degree. So there's a lot of generalizations on what level of language, right? Like you shouldn't ever speak over a grade 6 level. You should only use plain words. But then you have to have that exception and really get to understand your audience. So work with it. Always know your audience first. And then that brand messaging, that's the key messages you're going to communicate to the target audience, including the unique value proposition and the benefits of your products and services. So that's when in your marketing, it's going to be a lot on your website. It's going to be a lot in any print brochures. If you do media releases, it's going to be in that too. You may start out with certain key messages, especially if you do speak to the media a lot, you're going to want to have those messaging statements. And if you aren't even going to do that, it doesn't hurt to actually put together some messages about who you are and who you serve. So that's brand messaging. And then we get into the brand identity. This is where people get confused. It's like, oh, I want a brand. I need a logo. Well, it's so much more, right? Like before you go jumping into creating a logo or color palette or something like that, you need to spend some time understanding who you are, who you serve, your style, your tone. And that's why when you work with a graphic designer, they will spend time working with you right at the beginning to pull out that information, that creative information. Now, if you already have that and you can send that over to them, you might be able to save some time. But they really do need to know who you are so they can visually create a representation of who you are. So those things there, that logo, primary, secondary, that's just a quick list. If you want the extensive list, go to that download, that free materials. There is a checklist in there. So your brand identity is the visible elements of your brand, your color, your design, and your logo that identifies you and distinguishes you from in your consumer's mind when they first see it. Now, people often say, well, I don't have a lot of money, or what if it's not perfect? It doesn't mean your first logo when you're first figuring yourselves out. I know when I started my first business, well, I guess my first consulting business, I had my logo. I didn't know really who I was. So I just created something. I didn't spend a lot of time. And within 2 years, I understood a lot more about who I was as a business. I invested more money and I went in and had it redone, and it has lasted a lot longer. So this is, once you figure out who you are, do your research, do it. Doesn't have to be perfect, or it can be changed and tweaked and refreshed later. But it has to be something that represents you, who you are at that time. So that is your brand identity. For sure, we need a whole discussion around visual branding, but it gives you an idea for the context of the overall strategy. Brand experience is something to consider because it's those touch points along all the way of the customer journey. Remember, we said you touch a lot of things. You're going to touch print, you're going to touch your people, you're going to touch your online. People are going to be on your website too. So you really do have to think of that experience your consumer's going to have as they go through various parts of your business. So talking to customer service, things like that. Once you have that strategy and that guide, it really does allow you to scale. It allows you to be consistent. So when you onboard new employees, they know exactly what bus they're getting onto, right? Like, this is the culture. This is who we are. These are the things that we expect. Once they understand the atmosphere and the culture, it's much easier for them to learn and train and be representative of your brand. Because having brand ambassadors within your employees and influencers and things like that, all of this sets the stage for success. So think through that brand experience that you want your customers to feel across all of their interactions. So then we get into a brand promise. So brand promise is a statement that sets out what customers can expect from a brand in terms of products, services, and the overall experience. It articulates that value proposition, right, and benefits that your brand commits to delivering to the customers, effectively summarizing the essence of who you are and why you even exist. So it's not just about the features themselves, but it's that promise that I am going to deliver to you this. And it's a single statement. I'm going to show you a few at the end, and you'll recognize them. And why do we do that? Well, promises, when fulfilled, help cement the emotional and practical relationship between the brand and the customers. Because ultimately, that's it, right? We want recognition. And as soon as we see that brand and we see that promise, it's like, oh, okay, I trust that person. They're delivering on it. I know exactly who they are as a brand. It's really hard to come down to a succinct promise, and it may evolve over time, but really do try to put together a promise. You need to be, a good one is consistent, right, across all the channels. That's why establishing an official strategy that you can communicate to all your stakeholders is really important for consistency. It has to be unique to distinguish you from the competitors. It has to elicit an emotional feeling. When they see it, it's like, oh, right, I'm happy, or I'm confident, or I feel safe. All of those things you want them to be, to feel. Emotions are so important in branding. It needs to be simple and clear, and it needs to build credibility, right? Like, this is it, because you got to deliver on that promise. So it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm going to get there in 5 minutes, or it's free. That, I mean, we hear that sometimes too. It doesn't have to be that specific, but it's like, this is it's kind of taking your vision statement and your mission statement and going, based on this, I'm promising to do this with my business, with all my efforts. So that is a good brand promise. And so you'll recognize some of these, I think. Nike, to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Apple says to think different, right? Like they're promising they're going to help you think different because they're going to, and they typically do. I would say that's pretty credible. Walmart, save money, live better, and Coca-Cola's to inspire moments of optimism and uplift. All right, pretty much that big vision stuff. There are some other ones that are a little more specific, but I think these are recognizable. So now we get into, so we have our strategy, we have our promise. It's like, how are we going to communicate now to our consumers, our customers, our target audiences? Well, telling a story, as many of you know, things that have a beginning, middle, and end, it becomes memorable, right? Like it's how our brains are wired. So your brand story, if we want to actually take that whole idea of having a story and put it into how is that relevant to your brand, it is the story of your company. It's pretty actually simple. How did it begin? What are you doing now? And where are you going to go? Provides information about why the company began and talks about the people behind the brand. So sharing information about your company in the form of a story not only becomes memorable because it's where our brains are wired, but it helps us to connect with our audience. So convey it in a relatable, engaging, and meaningful way. Will help to solidify that. So sharing inspiring stories and successes of what your company is doing can help build positive and meaningful relationships with your customers, keeping them coming back and building a loyal following. And we do that. Most of us that are in the digital world now, we tell stories more than ever. Social media. Every time when you do your social media pillars, right, for content marketing, quite often we will have a whole bucket called about. And about is about you. What are you doing in the community? Do you have a new employee? Can you, a success story of something you've done and you've accomplished? That is your about. Also on your website, you have an about us page. Please do make sure you have an about us page. I don't know about you guys, but when I go to a website, the first thing I do, once I know it's kind of something I want, I go to the about page. I want to know about the people behind the brand because I want to invest in companies that I know about. I don't want something just faceless. And we really do. Some cultures maybe a little bit more than others, some people a little bit more than others, but telling your story definitely adds extra value. So know your story and then tell it. Customers who like a brand story are 55% more likely to consider buying from the brand, and 81% of people say they need to trust a brand before buying from them. So the research just shows that's not just my personal opinion. So it is something that you really should take into consideration. It will help. It helps build trust by being transparent and honest. So knowing who you are and then actually being authentic. Now, this is where knowing what your audience wants and knowing who you are has to come together, like this Venn diagram. And actually, in that resource, the brand storytelling, there is a whole template and exercises to go through to identify who you are, as well as who your audience is and where you overlap. So really do be authentic, transparent, and honest. A way to create deeper connections with your audience is what we do for this and why we do this. Telling stories expresses authority and personality of your brand. It makes it just more interesting. I think there's a bunch of stats out there too on how much people want inspiring stories. Like, what are you doing as a story? You can tell other stories, but be inspiring to people. Don't always be selling. Telling stories is really important. Builds empathy with your audience, obviously triggering emotions, and it increases. And we hear this, and I keep repeating because it's so true. Is the fact that now it's relatable. It's like, oh, they get me. They understand that that's the product I really need. They know my problem, and they're here to solve it. And we can do that through storytelling. So that is it. That's basically a brand strategy. And the one I wanted to show you is Jeep. And I will go over to to Chrome and open this up and just run through it quickly to show you some key highlights on why Jeep has kind of done, they've been around a really long time and they've had lows and they've had highs, but they have really kind of, at least in this world, figured out who their audience is. So I'm going to run over specifically in this Gladiator truck. See if I can, you guys can see that, right? Oh, there it is. So website is so much easier to look through because it is your hub, right? Remember, your website is the hub of all your marketing, even if you do on print, if you do media relations, your website is where everything will be updated and will be probably the strongest representation of your brand. And quite often, if you're going through a website development, this is a way to exercise to build out your business plan and your offering because it has all the components from a marketing standpoint, but it does represent all of them. So Jeep, this visually first page, and we know pictures are worth 1,000 words. This represent all of a sudden like outdoors, adventure, rough, right? Like I'm super cool, bright colors, but all the neat features. And so if anyone knows Emily, Emily has a Jeep, her and her husband, and they absolutely love their Jeep. And so just because I know that audience, it's seriously cool and it's rugged and cool and they want to be cool. No kids, double income, that young millennial. So this gets into this and it's clean, it's simple, it's straight to the point. That's just good design. Sometimes it's just good design, but then it's added a little element onto it. Designed to blow the doors off, right? Like it's to the point, it's exaggerated, it's so them. It fits that sort of big, awesome brand, blows or designed to blow the doors off. A fresh take on a legendary look, right? They want to be memorable. Like we're part of a really cool legend. And then it gets into the big picture. So staying updated is easy, gets into that style that adapts. They don't want to be pigeonholed. They want to be able to be versatile wherever they go. If they're going to go downtown because they're professionals and then they want to go weekend warrior off on the hill, right? Like this is it. They love talking about taking the roof off and getting dirty and the windshield all dirty. It's actually quite funny. So the only open air, again, differentiating, right? The only open air pickup truck in the industry. Now it's got a little asterisk. I'm assuming they better be able to support that claim. So if you do claim something, please do make sure that you can back it up because people will see through it in the world of information. This is really important for brand. If you have an eco-friendly starting, greenwashing is a challenge. It's a term that if basically you're over exaggerating what you're actually offering. So be very careful on the words you choose and make sure you are able to back it up. Oh, we're the only environmentally friendly product in Canada, for example. Yeah, well, that's a big claim. So make sure you know if you are or not. So going back to the hard top versus soft top, they got a cool dashboard, Apple CarPlay. Emily is a total Apple person, so I don't know if they've done the research to see if they're all Apple people in this world, but they do not like to leave their technology behind. They want to go out and be rugged, but don't let me not be or not connected to the rest of the world. We need to have all of our toys. Emily and I have talked a lot about this, so this is why I'm showing this. Capability that breaks boundaries. They want to be unique. They want to be cool. Don't put me into that pigeonhole. I guess off-road stuff, right? Like it's just rugged. Everything is extreme. And the pictures are there, the words support it. Front seats, everything's still casual. Again, rugged, but we still want all the cool features. And then more pictures of all of those features. Safety is another key thing for this group of people, because no matter what, if they roll or there's somewhere, they want to make sure that they have everything, that they're going to be safer than some tiny little car that just helps them get there. And then we have more pictures because it helps. So pictures are really important, right? It helps put the people in that area. So it's like, okay, that hitches to a trailer. Okay, oh my goodness, I can actually go up that hill. I got all those cool features. It's very high resolution. It's clear. It's pretty good, actually. This is a really good web page. Customer service, worry-free maintenance. This is it too. They don't want to be fixing the engine halfway out in the middle of nowhere. They want to make sure that this vehicle can get them from point A to point B through all of their adventures in the comfort and luxury. And when they come back, they want to be able to talk about it. It's totally Instagrammable, TikTok worthy, all of that good stuff. And it's really cool. So clean, effective, it does the job. I mean, I think Jeep has done a really good job with this. That's just one example, and we will jump into the discussion now, and we'll talk about what you guys learned and some of your key brands. If anyone is watching the recording afterwards and they want to drop them in the comments, keep the conversation going. So we'll see you there. Thanks.